right, Daf Tzadi Gimel. This is Shabbos' Daf. We're picking it up 15 lines from the bottom of Tzadi Beis, Amud Beis. Omer of Yitzchak bar Shmuel bar Marsa, Omer Rav. Lo yasra Torah ela knai kanais shabayid. When the Torah asks to get a nasha, it's only asking the soft, more edible parts of it, which are the little offshoots of the get a nasha, and not the actual get a nasha itself, because that's hard like a piece of wood. But Ula says no. Eitzu, it's taka inedible, but v'hat Torah chiva alav. The Torah asred to eat that eitz, if you will. That's kufa with the Torah asred. Omer Abaye kavase dula mistabra. The Omer of Sheshes Omer Ravasi. Chutin shebechelev asurin ve'en chayavin aleihem. The chutin, the little offshoots from the chelev, they're going to be these nerves and blood vessels. They're going to be usher, but you're not going to get kares. They're only going to be an isser d'Rabbanan. Alma chelev Omer Rachmana v'loy chutin. When the Torah said chelev, it's only talking about the actual thing and not those chutin. So achinami also by the get anasha gid Omer Rachmana, even if it's only an inedible eitz b'alma v'loy knai kanais and not those little offshoot things. Okay, so now for the rest of the daf today, we're going to talk all about chelev. Gufa Omer of Sheshes Omer of Asi chutin shebechelev asurin ve'en chayavin aleihen. You're not going to be chayiv kares for eating chelev when you're eating the chutin. It's only din d'Rabbanan. Shebekulia, the chutin that are in the kidney, asurin ve'en chayavin aleihen. They're usur, but you're not going to get kares because it's only din d'Rabbanan. Leiven kulia, the white of the kidney, meaning the fat of the kidney. Rabbi v'Rabbi Chia. There's a machlekes Rabbi and Rabbi Chia that chad osar v'chad shari. Rabba memartet le. Rabba would kind of scoop it out, and Rabbi Yochanan also would be memaret le. But Rabbi Asi goim le. He would scrape off the part that's on the surface of the kidney, but he would actually eat the part of that leiven that's inside the kidney. Omer Abaya kavased Rabbi Asi mistabra. Omer Rabbi Abba, Omer Rabbi Yehuda, Omer Shmuel. Moving over to Amud Aleph. Chelev shehabasar chayfa oisay mutter. Any part of the chelev that is covered by meat, that's not the chelev we're talking about. That kind of thing would actually be mutter. The only kind of chelev that's usher is when you take off the skin, you can see it that it's on top of the meat. Alma shala kesalim Omer Rachmana. Only the chelev that's on the flanks of basar. V'loy shebeseicha kesalim. Achinami. So too also when it comes to the kloyos, she'al hakloyos Omer Rachmana v'loy shebeseicha kloyos. Gufa Omer Rabbi Abba, Omer Rav Yehuda, Omer Shmuel. Chelev shabasar chayfa isa is mutter. That part of the chelev that's covered by meat, that's really inside the animal, that's going to be okay. That's mutter. Ay eni v'Omer Rabbi Abba, Omer Rabbi Yehuda, Omer Shmuel. Hai tarbe de tusai masne aser. That the chelev that's under the loins is aser. So if chelev that's covered by meat is mutter, why should this be aser? L'cher it's covered by that meat of the loins. Omer Abaya behema b'chaya haruke mifarka. Very interesting idea, Zakta Abaya. That while the animal's alive, since the animal's moving and things are kind of in flux between the limbs and the organs, and they separate, so the fat that's covered by the loins at the time of its death, while it's alive, it's considered uncovered. So you're telling me it's covered? It's not really covered. Kolzman it's alive because it's considered b'chayeha paruke mifraka. Amar Rabbi Yochanan, ana lav tabcha ana v'lav bar tabcha ana. I am neither a shaykhet or the son of a shaykhet. Unehirna, but it was enlightened to me, lashon of Naharoi, Dehachi have amri be midrasha, that this is what they would say in the Besmedrash, behema b'chayeha paruke mifarka. Same idea. While an animal's alive, it's moving around, so it's considered like what's covered up by the basar is really uncovered. Amar Rabbi Abba, Amar Rabbi Yehuda, Amar Shmuel. Chelev shalem seisu beisakaisis asurin va'anish kares. The chelev that's on these two of the four stomachs, the hemses and the beisakaisis, that's going to be asur, and it's mamish the real McCoy. It's chiyav kares. Zehu chelev shal hakerev. That's the chelev that's on the kerev that the Torah is talking about. When the pasuk says what kind of chelev, it's talking about this kind of chelev. Amar Rabbi Abba, Amar Rabbi Yehuda, Amar Shmuel. Hai tarba tekal bisusta asur va'anish kares. This chelev that's on the kilbusta, which is the little bone at the base of the vertebrae of the spine, that's going to be asur al chelev, and it's going to be a chiyav kares if you eat it, because that's the deraisa. V'zeu chelev shalak hasolim. V'yomer Rabbi Abba, Omer Rabbi Yehuda, Omer Shmuel. Chutin shebiyad asurin. The blood vessels, those chutin in the yad, that's the foreleg, that's going to be asur. Omer of Safra, Moshe, which is an expression of either shavua or just an exclamation. These are Talmud Chacham. Mi Omer Rachmana lo techel bisra. Did the Torah say you can't eat meat? I mean, even if you take the dam out of this thing, you're not allowed to eat them. They're regular meat, not chelev. Omer Rava. Rava says back to Rav Safra, Moshe, Miyom Rachmana echol dama. Did the Torah say you're allowed to eat the dam? Meaning those blood vessels of that yad are not asur al chelev, because the walls of the blood vessels were taka absorbing all the dam, and therefore that's why you can't eat it. But chatche umalche afil l'kderinami shaper dami. But if you taka cut it and salt it, and you do everything you're supposed to do to take the dam out, then in a chanami you could even cook it in the pot. Amar of Yehuda, Amar Shmuel, reish me'aya ba'amsa ba'e greira. After the food goes through that fourth stomach, it goes into the intestines. So before getting to the small intestine, it goes through a long straight tube that the Gemara is calling the reish me'aya, which is like the beginning of the intestines. So in that area of the reish me'aya, you got to scrape it off. It needs greira to remove the chelev. The zeu chelev shaladakin, and that's what's meant when we talk about the chelev that's on the intestines. V'yomer Rav Yehuda, chutin sheba oiketz asurin. Those chutin, those little threads of blood vessels that are in the hip that branch out of the lower spinal column that goes towards those flanks, they're also going to be aser. Chamsha chute ispe bekafla. There are 5 of the chutin in the flanks, and they're divided 2 and 3. Tlasa miyamina, the 3 are on the right side of the animal. Tarte mismola, and 2 are on the left. Tilsa mifatzlela tre. 3 on the right side branch into 2 each, and tre mifatzlela tilsa, and the 2 on the left side branch into 3 each. Now nafkamina, why do I need to know this information? Di isholafluhu ad dechamime mishtalfe. That if one pulls out one of these chutin while they're still warm, which is a way of saying right after the shechita of the animal, they'll slide out with the branches, and you don't have to dig after them. But if you didn't do it while it was still warm, meaning right after the shechita, then boy chatute basrao. Now you have to actually go dig into these things to get all the little pieces of the chutin that are no longer soft. So of course, now I need to know if I'm on the right side or if I'm on the left side, how many chutin am I actually looking for? Hence that descriptive information about 2 and 3, etc. Amar Abaya v'itemer Rav Yehuda, chamisha chute have. There are 5 groups of these chutin. Tlasa mishum tarba, 3 of them are asur al chelev. V'trein mishum dama, then the other 2 are asur al dam. The tachle u the kafle u the chulyasa mishum tarba. Those chutin of the spleen, the flanks, and the kidney are going to be asur al chelev. The yada u the loya mishum dama. But the chutin of the foreleg and the jaw are going to be asur al the dam. Now l'mayna afkamina, that's hani mishum dama. Because the other ones are asur al dam, imachatechlu molech lu shaper dami. Then if you cut it properly and salt it, and therefore you're extracting all the dam, it's going to be mutter. You're allowed to eat it. But hanach lesle takanta. But the other ones, the earlier ones that are asur al chelev, there's nothing you can do about it. They cannot be fixed. Amar Rav Kahana v'Tamer Rav Yehuda, chamisha karme have. There are 5 asur dika karme membranes. Tlasa mishum tarba, 3 of them are asur al chelev, but tre mishum dama, and 2 are al dam. Ditchali, the kafle, udchul yasa mishum tarba. The spleen, flanks, and kidneys are asur al chelev. Debeye, which is the zachrus of the animal. Udemarka mishum dama, and the brain will be asur al dam. Rav Yehuda bar Oshia have a kakolafle talcha lelevi bereder of Huna bar Chia. So Rav Yehuda bar Oshia was one time peeling the membrane of a spleen for Levi, which was bereder of Huna bar Chia, because who doesn't want to have a spleen for lunch? And have a kagoyas lem ilai, and he was like leveling off the spleen by taking the membrane only from the top part, but not from the lower area. Omer lezok Levi tim chuz beitvei. You got to dig deeper into that thing, into the lower area, because that lower area is also going to be usher because of the attached chelev. So also avua ashkeche, Rav Huna bar Chia came. So Levi's father, Rav Huna bar Chia, came and found him telling Rav Yehuda bar Oshia to take away the whole membrane. Omer lei, and he said to his son, Achiyam Ravua diimach mishum de Rav, that this is what your father's mother said b'shem Rav. Umanu, and in fact the Gemara, who is Levi's maternal grandfather, who Taka was quoting Rav? That's Rav Yirmiyah bar Abba. But anyway, what did he say? Le asur Torah elash al abdad bilvad. The only time the Torah asur that area of the spleen's membrane which was over the dad. The dad was some kind of nipple-like connector inside the kishkas of the animal. But you see, you don't have to take away that whole membrane from the lower part of the spleen. Aini, is that true? V'omer v'hamnuna Tana, the Brisa learned, Krum sh'al atchel is asur. That membrane that's on the spleen is asur. Vein chayav and Allah, but you're not chayav kares for eating it. So now hechidami. What's the Brisa talking about? Ilemash al haddad, that's area that we were just talking about. I'll say amay ein chayav and Allah. Why you're not chayav kares? Rav said that this thing is asur midai rice, and you should be chayav kares. Ella de kulya must be talking about the membrane of the entire spleen besides that dad, and it's teaching us that even this part of that membrane is going to be asur mid derabanan. Omar le Rav Huna bar Chia says to his son Levi, Itanya Tanya, I stand corrected. If that's the way it is, okay, then I'm asking. Gufa, let's get the more expansive version of that member from Rav Hamnuna. Amar Rav Hamnuna, Tana, we learned in the Brisa, Krum sh'al atchel is asur. The membrane that's on the spleen is asur, ve'ein chayav and alav, but you're not chayav kares. Krum shal gabe kulya is asur. The membrane that's on the kidney is asur, ve'ein chayav and alav, and you're not chayav kares for eating it. Now, v'hatanya, the Brisa says, look at each one of these things, chayav and alav, you are chayav kares. There it says, tchel like kosha, ho kineged adad. By the second Brisa that you're going to be chayav kares for eating it, that's talking about the part of the membrane that is opposite the dad. Ho doloi kineged adad, but whereas the first Brisa, that you're not chayav kares, that's talking about where it's not kineged the dad. Kulya nami like kosha, why? Ho be'ilah, where the second Brisa says that you are going to be chayav kares for eating it, it's talking about the upper area. But the first Brisa says you're not chayav kares, it's talking about that lower membrane. Weiter. Be'e chashilosa. The be'e, the zachrus, the beitzim of the animal, that are detached, but they're still inside the skin of the animal. So they're detached, but they're still locally there. It's kind of like that Aver Moduldelis that we had in the last sugyas over there by Elotrefus. Rav Ami v'Rav Asi. There's a machlekes Rav Ami and Rav Asi. Chad asur. They're going to be asur because they're considered Aver Menachai, despite the fact that they're still in the animal, but they're disconnected internally. So they're considered Aver Menachai. Chad Shari. Manda Aser, turning over Tamid Beis, Miduloi Kabaryan, since they don't regenerate and heal, so they're not really connected to the animal, and therefore Hani Aver Menachai Ninu. Therefore now they're going to be Aver Menachai, because they're disconnected. Manda Shari, and what's the rationale to say it's not Aver Menachai? Miduloi Kamasrachan, from the fact that they haven't decayed in that matziv, they're not like disconnected basar. So Hani Chiyusa Isbu, they're still getting Chiyus from the animal, and therefore they're not Aver Menachai. Now V'idach, if you hold that they are considered Aver Menachai, Hai Deloi Kamasarachan, this that they don't decompose, Deloi Kasholt Behu Avira. It's not because they still considered connected to the body of the animal. It's because they're not exposed to the elements outside. V'idach, and the Bar Plukta who holds that they're not considered detached, he's going to say, Hai Deloi Barya, and this that they don't heal and regenerate is because Kichishusa Hu Denokat Lahu. It's only because they're kochash, they're weak, but they are still drawing life from the mucker of the animal, and therefore, even though they are getting some sort of life from their source, since they can't regenerate and heal, they will not be considered part of the animal. Amar le Rabbi Yochanan le Rav Shemin bar Abba, Hani beye chashilosa sharyan. These beitzim that are mainly disconnected but are still inside the animal are mutter lahalacha va'at leitechel, but don't eat them. Mishum va'al titosh teres imecha, because you go bust with the meaning of where you're from, and therefore they wouldn't eat them, so you shouldn't eat them either. Omar mar bar Rav Ashi, Hani beye de gadya. Let's talk about the beitzim of this gadya, it's kosher animal. Ad tlasin yaimin sharyan b'le klifa. Until our chad gadya here is 30 days old, you're allowed to eat them without taking off any of the klipa of the membrane. Mikam v'yelach I azron asurin. If they've developed zera inside of them, they're going to be asur until you can peel off the membrane, because it's a simon that the dam is going to be functional, and therefore you have to worry about the dam. V'iloy azron sharian. But if they haven't developed zera, then they're mutter even without taking off this klip. Mino yodin. How can you tell whether or not these beitzim have the zera in them? For the Gemara, yes b'hushruki sumki asur. And if they have these red streaks, they're going to be asur, because then you see the blood vessels. Less b'hushruki sumki sharian. And you may remember this expression of shruki sumki about these red streaks. We had it in Masechta Brachas and Masechta Vaydazara by, I forget who the Amira was, who wanted to curse a certain min. And he wanted to find that moment of anger when Hashem had anger, and he would look at the chicken, and when he sees the top part of it has the shruki sumki, those little red spots because of the blood vessels, then he knew that was the moment of anger for Hashem. Okay, piece of raw meat that has red discolorations because of ruptured blood vessels. Or beye, that's the beitzim of the animal. Umizrake, and the blood vessels of the neck. On these things, pligi bar of acha v'ravina. Now, b'chol terakula, whenever these Amoraim would have a machlekes, and we didn't know who said what, we would say Ravina lakula v'ravacha l'chumra. Ve'ilchasa Ravina lakula. Labar mehanitzlas, except for these three things we just mentioned, that Ravacha lakula v'ravina is l'chumra. Ve'ilchasa Ravacha lakula, that we go basar, the more kula dika halacha. Now let's go through these things. Umtza de asmik. A piece of raw meat that turned red because of all the ruptured blood vessels. Chotcha u'molcha, if you look there in Amishaper dummy. If you cut it and salt it, then you can even put it in the pot and cook it and have supper with it. Talyanami bishbuda doyev dama. Also, if you roast it on a spit, it's going to be mutter because the blood comes out during the roasting. Agmure, but if you roast it on hot coals, pligi bar ravacha v'ravina. Chad omer mishav she'iviles. One of them says that the heat will draw the dam out, and therefore that'll be matter the meat. The chad omer mitzmas tzamsele. The heat makes the meat shrivel up, and therefore it retains the dam that's stuck inside, and therefore it'll be aser. V'chein bay, and the same thing applies to the beitzim of the animal. V'chein mizrake, and also the same thing applies to the blood vessels in its neck. Reishe bekivsho. Let's say you have a head that's buried in the kivsho, which Rashi learns is the hot ashes that would singe off the hair of the animal. So this head of the animal is inside these hot ashes. Oisve abes hashchita. If you put it on the place of its shchita, meaning you put the ashes in an upright position with the severed neck on the bottom. Doyev dama v'shari. So the dam goes right out through the open neck, and therefore the head is going to be mutter to eat. Atzdodin, but let's say the head is now on its side, then it's a problem because mikpa kafe v'aser. The blood is going to congeal inside the skull since it can't escape from the opening, and therefore it's going to be asr al dam. Oisve an nechire, if you put the head on its nostrils, like face down, then dotzbe midishari. If you stuck something into the nostrils to hold it open and allow the blood to go out, then the head will be mutter. V'yelai asr, but if you don't stick anything in the nose, it's going to be asr. Or ikadiamri an nechiro v'abes hashchita doiv. If you put the head on its nostrils or on the place of its shchita, then the dam will be able to get out, and therefore it's going to be mutter. But atzdodin, if it's on its side, then he dotzbe midishari. If you stuck something into the skull to puncture it, then the head will be mutter because the blood will go out through the puncture. V'yelai, it'll be asr, and it'll be no good. Amar of Yehuda Amar Shmuel, Shnei Gidin Hein. There are two Gida Noshes that go through the thigh. Hapnimi is Samach Le'etzim. The inner one is close to the bone, as Asr V'chayav and Olav. That's the one you get Malchus for eating. That's the real McCoy of the Gida Nosha. But Chitzain, Samach LeBasar, the outer one, which is closer to the Basar, Asr Vein Chayav and Olav. It's Asr Midrabanan to eat it, and therefore you're not going to get Malchus. I have a Hatanya, the Bryce says Pnimi Samach LeBasar. The inner one, which is close to the Basar, is Asr, and you're going to get Malchus. Amar Vacha, Amar of Kahana, Iklude Miklid. When the Bryce is talking about the inner one that's close to the busser. That's because after passing over the thigh bone, it sticks itself into the busser like a key. So as Rashi explains, when the Brisa says that inner one, it's not talking about the one that's located inner one. It's talking about why it's called the inner one, because even though it initially is on top of the busser, but at some point it will go down like a key that gets inserted into a keyhole. Tanya, the Brisa says the one that's close to the bone is going to be Yasser, and you're not going to get Malchus for eating it. It's also Midrabanan. Rav Yehuda, Heche de Pare Tabche. The Brisa is talking about the outer one that's close to the etzem at the point when the sheichet is uncovering it because he separates the thigh from the hip. Itmar, Tabach shenimtza chelev acharav. Let's say you have a sheichet that you found chelev by him. So he did the wrong thing because it's the achrayas of the sheichet to get rid of the chelev before selling it to the public. Now we trust these sheichetim, but let's say now you find that he had chelev. So Rav Yehuda Omer, b'kisa'ira, he's going to be punished even if it was just the size of a sa'ira of chelev. And Rabbi Yochanan Omer is b'kisayis, if it was a kisayis. Omer papa v'le pligi. Kan lahal kaisayra. Rabbi Yochanan said it has to be a kisayis because he's talking about the sheichet getting malchus. But kan la'avrei. Where did Rabbi Yehuda say that it's going to be a sa'ira? He was talking about just firing him from his job. Well, even the smaller shear would be a fireable offense. Omar Rav Zutra, Kisa'ira b'makamecha. When we talk about the Sa'ira, we're talking about it's all in one location. But Kizayis hafil b'shnayim u'b'shleishim b'kaimais. That can be mitzdarif together to be a problem. V'hilchasa lahal kaisai b'kizayis, but la'abrai is b'kisa'ira. Then the Mishnah had said, Ein atabachin ne'amanin v'chulu, that we do not trust the sheichtim l'gabe removing the get hanasha. That's what Rav Meir said, but the Chachamim in the Mishnah argued said they are ne'aman. Omar Rabbi Chia bar Abba, Omar Rabbi Yechanan, chazru leimer ne'aman, and later on they changed their opinion and said that the sheichtim are ne'aman to remove the get hanasha. Omar of Nachman, I kashur dare? What, you think things got better? Like all of a sudden now there's a cheskes kashrus that didn't exist beforehand? What do you mean? We know the opposite. It's neskatno adairis. Not that people get more trustworthy. And for the Gemara, meikara dehave saver luka Rav Meir. L'chatchil the Rabbanan held like shitas Rav Meir that taking the get hanasha means you got to take even the parts that are very deeply embedded in the thigh. So lehave mehemne. The sheichtim weren't trusted because that was really hard to do. Well, b'sayif savrik Rabbi Yehuda, but since the Rabbanan lemaisa held like Rabbi Yehuda that you only have to take away the easier, smaller, more accessible part of the get hanasha, which is much easier, now you can trust the sheichtim to do it properly. The Chacham say that the sheichtim are trusted to take away the get hanasha and the chelev. Amar Rabbi Chia bar Abba, Amar Rabbi Yochanan, Chazru leimer ein ne'eman, and later on they said that the sheichtim are not going to be trusted. Rav Nachman bisman hazeh ne'emanin. But today we do trust the sheichtim. Ikashur dare? What, things got better in the generations? Now, and for the Gemara, Mikar so for Rabbi Yehuda, and it's easier to remove the get hanasha, and therefore they trusted them. But Hadar Savuruk Rabbi Meir that it was harder to remove the get hanasha. So Kamid Have the Kirile with Rabbi Yehuda le Mehemni, as long as the sheichtim remembered the way they used to do it, which was based on Shitas Rabbi Yehuda, they were not going to be allowed to go like the Chumrah of Rav Meir. But Vahashta the Anshuye le Rabbi Yehuda Mehemni. But now that they've forgotten already, and they're no longer holding on to that muscle memory of what used to happen like Shitas Rabbi Yehuda, and they're only going like Rav Meir, now we can be miming them. And the Mishnah finally ends. Vala Chelev. The Chachamim had argued with Rav Meir and said that they are trusted legabe Chelev. So Chelev man the Koshmei. We were talking about get hanasha. So why are the Chachamim talking about Chelev? So Hachika Omer, this is the pshat in the Mishnah. Ein ne'eman alav va'al ha'chelev. So it means Rav Meir is also talking about Chelev. And after them, the Chachamim ne'eman alav v'al ha'chelev. So really we're talking about Chelev the whole time. All right, we're going to pick it up with the Mishnah, Mirz Hashem, for Sunday's daf.